All right, let's do this. What are we watching today? Democracy at Work in Rural Puerto Rico by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. That's interesting. I wonder why they specifically wanted to make a program on Puerto Rico. Let's see, this was published around the 1940s, and all it says is life and development in rural Puerto Rico. So I guess that's all we have to go on. Let's just get started. The United States Department of Agriculture Extension Service presents. I'm always so interested by who ends up producing these because it, first of all, definitely lends you a better understanding of the lens that they're using for this. If this was made by the Puerto Rico Department of Agriculture, I feel like we'd have a lot different of a perspective than the United States Department of Agriculture. It's a very strange agency to be producing video content like this all the way back in the 1940s, but that's what I'm here for, I guess. Democracy at Work in Rural Puerto Rico. So that's the full title. It's kind of ironic considering the situation Puerto Rico remains in to this day. I wonder if they're going to talk about that at all. Like, was Puerto Rico on like the verge of statehood at this time as well? I'm trying to remember. The Spanish-American War was definitely way before this, so we definitely controlled Puerto Rico. I guess I'm just curious. I'm curious what the American perspective on Puerto Rico was all the way back in the 1940s. All right, photography, Walter Scott, Carl Turvey, narration, Lee Vickers, recording, Reuben Ford. Shout out to these guys. It's actually crazy how few people were associated with these productions. I feel like we'll see like 10 people max. Directed by Chester Lindstrom. Not a very Puerto Rican name, if you ask me. I like the several seconds of just music and like blank ocean video. Again, we're in the old-timey editing world. Like seriously, this shot is lasting like more than 10 seconds. We just transitioned to another beach with more silence and just waves crashing.
Puerto Rico.
That's hilarious. I just want to say, like, right off the bat, the way he said Puerto Rico. I know Puerto Rico is like the Anglicization of Puerto Rico. It's funny to hear this narrator attempt to say Puerto Rico in like the authentic Spanish sort of way. Like, I feel like every American deep down knows it's supposed to be Puerto Rico, but very few of us actually have the ability to say it like that. It's so funny that the narrator gave it his all in this intro.
Outpost of American democracy.
Puerto Rico, host of American democracy, is the first line.
This island was discovered in 1493 by Christopher Columbus, to whose memory this...
I feel like that's something that you always forget about in America too, is that like, not only was Puerto Rico discovered first, but Puerto Rico was also colonized first. Like, Puerto Rico has older buildings, European buildings, I guess, than North America. Like, you will find older, more colonial styles in Puerto Rico than you'll ever find in America, which is just, I feel like, ironic. I feel like people forget that Puerto Rico was actually a super important place back in the colonial era.
Monument at Aguadilla is consecrated. Ruled by Spain until 1898.
1898, all right, so that's when we took it over.
Peopled by descendants of Spanish settlers.
It's so funny to think of like Spanish settlers looking like this. This is just like not how I picture Spanish settlers. Like I guess I just picture them as like conquistadors, but I guess it makes more sense that they were just like guys in white button-down collared shirts and like straw hats or whatever these are. It is crazy. It is wild seeing just like the early farms of Puerto Rico. I guess like by this point, Puerto Rico had already been colonized for like 400 years. So I guess this isn't really early in Puerto Rico's colonial history. There's a nice sampling of the Puerto Rican women for you for some reason. I think we'll see more of them though.
100-year-old communities when the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock.
Oh, they just said that 100-year-old communities when Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock. So that's what I was saying earlier. Like, Puerto Rican colonized society got started way before North American colonized society. which, means that the native Puerto Rican people, I think they were like the Taino. I think that's what they were. They were removed far earlier than the rest of the Native Americans. Native Caribbeans, I guess.
Portocele, a 4th-century-old church, symbol of Catholic tradition.
Yeah, see, like that's the sort of stuff that you don't have here in America, like a 4-century-old church. I don't even think America's 4 centuries old. It's not. You forget that Puerto Rico is actually like super rich in culture and history compared to even the United States. And I don't know, I'm enjoying myself. I'm already remembering how important Puerto Rico was.
Old church, symbol of Catholic tradition. La Fortaleza, the fortress, residence of the island's governor since 1533.
Dang, those are some real mansions. Those are like huge.
Today,
it's like a fortress.
A new era. Ancient patios resound to the strains of modern music.
It's so crazy because you think of Puerto Rico as like, I guess, a place of Spanish culture rather than English culture. When you watch stuff like this, you realize like, oh, that's all the same. Like this just looks like any cafe in any nice tropical island setting, like anywhere. This looks like America already. This also does not look like Puerto Rican dancing, just my opinion, but that is the most Anglo thing that's going on in this whole frame, is the way these people are dancing with each other. You won't find dancing like that in Puerto Rico anymore.
But time-honored customs linger on. Here is the Sayas Choriao, a centuries-old Puerto Rican country dance.
A Puerto Rican country dance? All right, so that's what they're doing. They're contrasting like the typical American style of dancing with whatever the rural Puerto Rican style is. I'm excited for this. I want to see if this is actually very different than the dancing we just saw a second ago. This woman's smile. She looks like too happy. All right, I guess it's not that different than the dancing we saw earlier. They're just going around in circles. I really expected something else. It is already more energetic than the dancing we saw a second ago, though.
Behind old massive ramparts, modern structures symbolize Puerto Rico's progress during 43 years under the American flag.
43 years under the American flag. That's so funny. So this was, they said 1898, so this is probably like 42? Am I doing math right on that? That's also so wild to think that like Puerto Rico at this time had only been a colony. Like the people alive in Puerto Rico at that time who were like 40 and older, like remembered a time before American presence or American occupation, I guess, and the after time. And now I don't think there's anyone alive who really remembers that. It's weird how recent and long ago it was at the same time.
Its strategic position in an unsettled world now gives the island a...
See, I like what he just said. Its strategic position in an unsettled world. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier about how before it was settled, before it was, colonized, Puerto Rico was a very important stopover in the Caribbean because this is where, you would load up your ships to go back to Europe. I think this is where the capital of New Spain was. I don't actually know that for sure. It might have been Havana.
New and vital importance, in the realization of which its 2 million peace-loving people are cooperating patriotically to forestall the spread of totalitarian tyranny to the shores of the Americas.
That's funny how that's how they're positioning it. Like the American presence in Puerto Rico was in part to prevent tyranny from authoritarianism from spreading into the Americas, which again, I feel like a whole essay could be written about the irony behind that, but that's funny how they put it. This is why this is so much fun to watch, because it always exposes the thoughts behind the people in the US. Like you can tell how they think of this place already just by the way that they're speaking about it.
And thus to uphold the traditions of the great Latin American patriots and teachers, of whom not the least is De Hostos, illustrious Puerto Rican educator.
Puerto Rican educator, see, that's an interesting thing to be like celebrated for. That's tells you the people of this island are smart.
The economic structure.
They're not even going to explain that. I can't believe they're in the 1940s going to pretend like I, an American from 80 years in the future, is going to know who that person is. I probably should know who that is, but I hope they circle back to that or we get some explanation of that guy.
Of Puerto Rico rests on a highly specialized agricultural system based on external trade relations.
I feel like that's a very fancy way of saying, like, we colonized this so that we can have sugar. It's like, yeah, the economy of this island is very specialized into exporting our agricultural products. It's a very good way of putting it, for the U.S. Department of Agriculture at least.
Sugarcane is king, the principal source of income. In 1940, 59% of all exports were agricultural products.
That's what I just said, right? 59% of all exports were agricultural products. The U.S. uses this place to farm crops that it couldn't farm in its own territories.
Of this, 90% was sugar.
Sugar, I called that even sugar, yeah.
Large sugarcane interests occupy the fertile coastal plains.
Large sugarcane interests occupy the fertile plain. Yeah, that's again one way to put it. Large sugar interests. You could also say that the sugar plantations completely deforested and eradicated all life from these plains. But, potato, potato, I guess.
And furnish seasonal employment to workers in the cane fields. Thus, most of the farming population has been driven to the hills. Here, the principal crop.
Thus, most of the farming population has been driven to the hills. All right, so what happens when an imperial power takes over an island with the purpose of using it for agricultural production? Is all the people there have to cater to that desire by leaving the cities, going out into the farms, and making money the only way they can, the only way that is valued by the person or the entity that controls your entire island. I feel like they're outlining like the colonization of Puerto Rico better than they realize. I don't think they meant to illustrate their intentions as clearly as they did in this, I guess.
Crops are coffee and tobacco. Coffee shown here is grown in the shade of forest trees. Yams, yautillas, and a large variety of other vegetables and fruits are grown for domestic consumption. 300,000 farm families live up here working the good earth, working it hard to get from their tiny farms the food necessary for subsistence, packing their products over steep and difficult...
It's just so funny he just said that, right? Working so hard to get money to buy food for their subsistence when, like, these people have, like, we saw it a second ago, they have so much farm produce. Their farms were successful. They didn't need to work so hard to pay for their own food, but because they weren't growing any food was more expensive, so you had to use more money from the cash crop that you grew to buy your own food. It's the hilarious paradox of cash crops versus subsistence agriculture, where you have all the land you need to farm all the food you could ever eat, but because you're using that land to grow something else, you end up not having any food, and you need to work harder at your job to just buy food when you could literally just grow that same amount of food for less effort. Again, that's the colonial system at play.
Trails to surfaced roads and the market. Yes, nearly 2 million people living on an island 100 miles long by 40 miles wide, less than 4,000 square miles, and most of these folks dependent on sugarcane for...
I love that he rattles off like all these numbers one after the other, as if like anyone watching now or back then was like taking that in. That's one of the big things that I try to do, that I try to avoid when making videos, is just giving the audience numbers like that. Like, you can't do anything with 40 miles wide. The Department of Agriculture clearly hadn't learned that editing style or technique yet.
Livelihood. Less than 1 acre of arable land per person.
Less than 1 acre of arable land per person. Dang, that's rough.
4 acres for a family of 5. 4 acres of steep hillside in a country that must live on it.
Oh man, but it looks so idyllic. Just seeing that one kid smile, like, I bet it was a blast living here still. Maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know enough about Puerto Rican politics. I feel like there might have been some rough times coming up for these Puerto Ricans. What is it, 1942? Yeah, they're definitely gonna experience some rough times, but I don't know. It looks nice. Doesn't it? Like, I think it looks like so quaint.
Agriculture. All of them must work. Men, women, boys, girls, many with no implement but a peat coal or a pointed stick. The Puerto Rican farmer manifests independence, thrift, and courage worthy of the highest praise.
Puerto Rican farmer manifests independence. That's another good term. Another good phrase for the revolution, I'd say.
Witness Don Juan Pasruiz.
Is this real? Did people actually do farming in button-down shirts and ties and pants on Puerto Rico? Is this like... There's no way. It seems so hot to be wearing all of that and doing all this physical work. That's the part of the old world that I just like, I can't fathom, is people wearing this sort of clothes all the time.
By means of hard work, intelligent management, and the help of his family, he manages to grow on 22 acres about 75% of the food needed for his household of 19 persons.
Maybe that's why they're having so much problems feeding everyone. His household of 19 people, so 18 kids. Oh my God, look at this picture. Are those all of his kids? He has 22 acres. Holy moly.
No movies, no auto, no radio, no 8-hour day.
No auto, no radio. That's hilarious.
But supreme satisfaction in the knowledge of work well done.
Bro, you have 18 kids and you have supreme satisfaction, all right? That's insane. No wonder. Was that very brief clip of Spanish opera music? I feel like that music that we just listened to very briefly has like definitely been lost. I don't know why, but I just feel like nobody's heard that song in like 100 years.
Don Juan is a native son of a countryside of extraordinary beauty.
Don Juan is a native son of a countryside. I feel like that exposes how, again, Americans viewed it, where like they were calling the Puerto Ricans native, even though they were also just the Spanish colonizers who had came like 100 years previous to this, that the colonizer is becoming the colonized in this situation. Like before the US arrived in Puerto Rico, those Puerto Ricans would have called themselves like non-natives. They would have been like Spanish or foreigners or whatever. But the Americans perceived them as natives because they were already there. And the sad part is that they would also treat them like natives as well, or treat them similar to how they treated other Native Americans, which... yeah, there's some hard times coming up, I guess, for these people.
A land of blue skies and white surf, of majestic green mountains, and magnificent...
Yeah, see, like, I know this is like when they're destroying the whole environment, but it also looks so nice to be there. It feels like back in this time, you could like really make something out of yourself just by going off into the random valleys of Puerto Rico and starting your own banana farm. I always feel the appeal of like the rural countryside from the 1940s.
Magnificent sunsets, a land that yields a modest livelihood to people who work hard enough to win it.
Just sat through like, again, like 10 straight seconds of like no voiceover narration, just cows. I just watched cows for like a while. Look at this whole landscape of this small bus. You see, like, before settlers arrived, all of this would have been forested. Puerto Rico's in the Caribbean. It's a tropical island. Like, this was all not only forest, this was all probably rainforest. And now you can see it's all cleared. Like, all the way in the back, past this mountain, past these valleys, it's all been cleared. I guess that's the wildest thing to understand about this time, is how rapidly not only like people were changing, or like the world was changing, like the actual physical surface of the world was changing so rapidly at this time. And just this shot alone reveals that. Like, I guess Puerto Rico, they said it had already been occupied for 400 years, but this scale of ecological devastation was really a new capability of man's at this point. And you can just see it. You can see it from this frame right here, just how destroyed the native environment of this island was. This looks nice. Like, I think I would thrive growing up on a farm like this. Like this, again, this looks so ideal to me. Maybe that's just because it's snowing outside right now. This is probably more than 10 seconds that I've just been watching this shot of the ocean with nothing happening besides the Spanish opera music. Again, just a different editing style. I don't even know what situation in the world this would have been shown. I didn't even think about that. Like, I don't think this would have been shown to kids in schools even. Maybe it would have. Maybe this would have been like a government or like a civics class like program to show. But I really can't imagine it was. Would the US Department of Agriculture really make school programs for children? I don't know. Who watched this? In what situation? I have no idea. Alright, so yeah, I've just been watching a montage for like half a minute or more at this point. Nothing's been happening. I just feel bad because I'm not saying anything, I'm just watching, but there's really just nothing for me to talk about for this part. It's just so sad because I know these are like good shots in the mind of the photographer, but like 80 years since, and these aren't so good of shots anymore. I mean, I'm enjoying the music though. I wonder if this sort of music was actually listened to in Puerto Rico. Like, this is like what people back in the day would listen to or not. Yeah, we've been on this one shot for like 15 seconds now, and I can't even see the guy. Again, this is old editing for you.
Who shall say that Don Juan is not justified in the belief that he lives in a country favored of God? And who shall say that this humble but self-reliant...
You know, that's so funny that that's what they always bring it back to, is God. Like, who could say Don Juan doesn't live in a land, like, blessed by God or whatever? Like, I don't know. Like, it looks like they're in the process of destroying it, you know? Like, they wouldn't say that about Puerto Rico now. They would only say that about Puerto Rico before they'd even gotten there. It only appeared blessed by God because people hadn't destroyed it. Totally destroyed it, at least, until this point.
And head of the house is not, in the essentials that count, the peer of any farmer anywhere. But though he may not complain, Don Juan does have his problems. And from
what are Don Juan's problems? He has 18 children. What are his problems?
Now on, if he likes, he can have some help in solving them. The University of Puerto Rico is the headquarters of agricultural extension work started in 1934.
You know, I'm actually starting to see why the U.S. Department of Agriculture made this. This whole thing has been about how American interests, business and specifically agricultural interests, have like taken over Puerto Rico.
Now a staff of about 100 extension workers gives a helping hand to the farmer, his wife, and his children. The College of Agriculture of the University of...
Wow, this is like a super modern building. This looks like the high school of like some TV show, like some cartoon animated TV show. Does this not look like somebody's high school? Like, oh my God, it's not The Simpsons, is it? It looks like a high school from some show.
Puerto Rico develops trained personnel.
I wonder if it still looks like this. I bet this building is still here.
Classes like these come the men and women who carry the message of better farming and better living to farm folks. Here we see the two agricultural experiment stations of Puerto Rico, where experiments are conducted for the...
Agriculture experimentation. That's interesting. I hope there's like some good nuggets hidden in this.
Benefit of farmers.
Saying that wipe transition? No, there have been no other transitions like that in this whole program. I wonder why they did that.
Here is a root of rotenone plant, introduced into Puerto Rico from the East Indies, and from which an insecticide, non-toxic to humans, is made.
That's cool. Are they extracting some sort of pesticide from an invasive or a non-native plant? That is pretty complicated for these times. I won't lie. Like that, I'm not expecting like this whole chemistry setup.
Experiments in perfume production from native plants are bearing fruit.
See, I like that idea a lot. See, that's like the sort of like agro business model that we need more of, is, you know, people using native flowers to create perfumes or whatever, even though that's kind of a dumb product. Like, I like that a lot. I like the idea of like you farming native plants for a special scent, you know? Like that's really cool. And if you use that perfume, like you smell, that's a very specific smell and like a very like worldly and like meaningful smell, you know, as opposed to like teak pine, you know, cologne or whatever. Like, what's this perfume? That's, you know, that's Puerto Rican flower. I don't know. I like that. I like that idea. I hope this is still happening.
Also, the culture and processing of vanilla beans.
Vanilla beans, see, yeah, another tropical crop that we can't actually grow here in the continental US. So we're just using Puerto Rico as our like own private farm.
Bamboo furniture. Termite-resistant varieties of bamboo have been introduced, and by means of a vocational program, new uses are being developed.
But that is very interesting. That's always how it is. I don't actually know what to say about that, but it's interesting that they introduced bamboo so much that they had to find a use for it, and then they used it to make furniture. And it's, I don't know, I feel like we don't use bamboo to make furniture anymore. Maybe I just don't know the sort of wood that's in my furniture, but again, that's a very, very quaint idea. It's like, I don't know, I like this like villagers solving their own problems.
Successful varieties of bamboo are distributed to farmers. The Extension Service fosters the propagation.
It's just, oh my God, but at the same time, it's like you guys just destroyed the natural environment of this entire island, and all you're doing is introducing like non-native species to farm. This is like the worst. This is why I like the perfume idea the most, because the rest of these, like, if you know bamboo, like bamboo is impossible to get rid of once you introduce it. And like, I guarantee you, today, there are still bamboo forests. The bamboo that we're seeing on screen right now, I guarantee you, there is a direct, like, clonal relative of all this bamboo still alive on Puerto Rico today. I guarantee you could find the exact same genes. Not even like a child, a clone of these bamboos, because they spread through their roots. Like, I guarantee you, this exact individual that we're looking at right now is still in Puerto Rico.
And use of successful varieties of introduced plants. An objective lesson. An extension specialist teaches a group of farmers and 4-H club boys how to prepare a good...
Like, even these kids are in this clothes. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're all out here farming, and they're wearing ties and, like, colored shirts. I just don't get it. How did nobody say, like, I would rather just wear a shirt, a t-shirt or something? And they're wearing belts even. Like, this, it looks so sweaty here.
Fertilizer from farm refuse and chemicals.
What are they doing, though? I can't even figure out what they're doing. Like, it seems like they're just digging a hole. That's funny. That, like, I don't know what they just planted or if they even did just plant something, but it's funny to see agriculture before, like, mechanization really took off. There, you might have had, like, tractors and stuff pulling plows and whatnot back in this time, but you did not have, like, assembly lines of, like, harvesting to, like, you know, shipping like you do now. These programs have all preserved like the farm by hand methods. Like those guys just spreading the mulch with their hands, like they would not be doing that today. We would have some sort of robot doing that for us. Oh wow, look, there's an American flag flying over everyone. That is funny. I should have expected that, obviously, but I guess I just wasn't expecting that. Like, do they fly the American flag in Puerto Rico? I mean, Puerto Rican flag is pretty much the American flag anyway, but it's funny. They totally put this flag here for the film.
Here, farmers learn how to judge the characteristics of a good type of dairy cow. Topography does not favor the extension worker in this extremely rugged countryside.
Topography does not favor the extension workers. I know I'm not supposed to say that's crazy, but it's crazy to think that, like, people had colonized Puerto Rico so effectively that now, by this point, there were people so distant, so like in the mountains that it was hard to get to these people. It's wild to think that like people got to this island and they just went off on their own and built their own little like plantations or houses wherever they deemed fit. Like that you could just do that back in the day. And like the only thing stopping you would be like natives. It's just, I don't know. It's wild to think that there used to be a time you could just wander out into the middle of Puerto Rico and stake a claim.
Though the island is crisscrossed with hard-surfaced roads, the majority of the highland farms are reached only by steep and winding trails.
See, this is just, I don't know, I think about this more and more when I watch these old films, but like, if it was so hard to get to this farm, how did all these people even figure out that this guy was coming? Like, what was the social chain that like allowed everyone to hear about this and get there at the right time? It's just, I don't know, I feel like they didn't have phones or anything, right? Like they just had to rely on word of mouth. It's wild how effective society operated even before these technologies that we think made things like this possible.
Regardless of terrain, few farmers will miss the informative discussion groups when the county agent is in the neighborhood. Good men, these men of the hills, tillers of the soil as their fathers were before them, but with a new zest and zeal.
Dude, look at this guy. Oh my God, I hope this guy is a farmer. That's one thing that hasn't changed about the Spanish part of America is the freaking fits. Dude, look at this guy. He looks so good.
And a desire to help solve the agricultural problems of Puerto Rico. On non-demonstration farms such as this, result demonstrations are carried on and free stud service provided from purebred stock to improve native livestock. Here, farmers learn about tobacco seed selection.
Yeah, again, here farmers learn about tobacco seed selection. Again, like, it's so insidious. I don't even think these farmers really understood what was happening. Like, I don't think they realized that America just needed or had this demand for tobacco, and we're just like, we're gonna find whatever land we can that grows this. I guess America, you could farm tobacco too. It seems like all this, like, free, helpful teaching that these people are doing is actually just to, like, here's how to, like, destroy your land for our benefit, you know? That's really what it is. It's like, here's how to plunder, like, the natural wealth of this island so that you can sell us sugar, you know, and coffee and tobacco. Not even good stuff for you, like the bad stuff. Like, we are destroying this island so that we can also destroy our own bodies as well. Like, that's what's taking place right here. And I don't think any of them are aware of that. I don't even think the U.S. Department of Agriculture was truly aware of that either. Or else they would have made an effort to, like, hide that intention of theirs, you know?
A demonstration plot designed to show how to keep topsoil in place. Poultry raising is encouraged. Through the Extension Service, farmers receive the full benefit of other action programs.
It's crazy to think that, like, these guys didn't know farming practices beforehand. Like, they must have, right? Like, they were surviving out here on their own farms anyway. I guess they were introducing to them, like, cash crops, not, like, sweet potatoes or whatever they were growing. What were they growing, I imagine? They probably were growing, like, corn, beans, and squash is what I'd have to guess.
For instance, trees from Forest Service nurseries go to reforest their land.
So clearly they had some awareness that they were absolutely destroying this land to the point where they felt obligated, at least to a small degree, to replant some things and then share, you know, cuttings with other farmers. What they're doing doesn't look like it would work. They're just cutting these trees down and putting them in sacks. I mean, maybe they are good at propagating like that, but I don't know. That's very interesting, though, that they are aware of the problem of deforestation and are trying to do something. You always think that these people just didn't know better, and that's almost worse, honestly, is that they did know that the environment was suffering and they were still just engaging in these practices anyway, just trying to slap a Band-Aid on it. Like, oh, give one farmer like a bushel of sticks to plant in the ground to see if they propagate. Like, I don't know. I don't think they did quite enough. It's interesting that they were doing anything at all, though, I will say.
Here, the county agent is discussing a farm security loan with the farmer's family. To diversify agriculture, the Extension Service encourages the cultivation of winter vegetables for the mainland market.
Yeah, see, that's something that you can do in Puerto Rico that you can't do pretty much on any farm in all of the United States, is get a winter crop in. Or at least you might be able to do that in the South, but not up here in the North. You are not farming anything during the winter here. So another reason why the U.S. Department of Agriculture would be interested in Puerto Rico, I guess.
Marginal lands are proving suitable for cotton. The cultivation of Sea Island cotton on such lands is being fostered.
Dang, look at this huge cotton field though. And I'm trying to figure out what the sort of society was like. Was this like, this feels like an almost like communal society that they were introducing this to. I don't know if it was, probably not, but it just seems like they're all working together in this one cotton field. Like you only see that when there's like communal land distribution or like actual slavery. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of like the lifestyles of these like native Puerto Rican people. Were these just like happy-go-lucky farmers getting to pick cotton, or is there something darker happening here? I think we also sort of already know the answer to that, but let's just leave it at that.
Whole families of poor people find employment in these fields.
Something that has never changed about people is, especially kids, is when you shove a camera in their face, they start to smile and laugh. And you will see that from, 1940, from any footage you ever see from the old times. People like still went crazy over being in front of a camera. It's so funny.
Important as the farm itself is the farm home. Hence, home industries are encouraged. Under extension guidance, Senora Josefa...
See, that is crazy, though. It pretty much looks like they were trying to turn Puerto Rico into America. Like, everything that I've seen, like all the buildings that they've constructed, all the clothes everyone's been wearing, it really does seem Americanized. It seems like they're making an effort to make it Americanized. And I can't tell if that was just for this program, like they had people wear specific clothes and brought them to the most modern, newest buildings that they had just built. And, look at these shelves. Like, these look like American food shelves. I'm curious if this actually is like what Puerto Rico looked like back then, or if we're seeing a very specific look given to us by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I wonder. I don't know.
Raises and cans food for home use and for sale. Hard work, but this beautiful and comfortable home...
Dude, look at this home. All they're doing is canning food, and they have this home. Holy crap. That's what I'm talking about. Like this quaint era in time where all you needed to do was like can everyone's food, and you had like a nice house, Like there's no world where you can just can food anymore.
Deft fingers making the lace for which the charming Puerto Rican women are famous.
Oh, okay, so this this is not what I was expecting to see. These women are making dresses, and just based on this footage, this looks really complicated. Like, I do not know how you don't mess those up eventually. That's not agricultural at all.
An art passed down from mother to daughter through the centuries.
But even this, like, I don't know, it seems so nice. Like, you're just chilling with your mom. She's teaching you how to make a dress. Like, what a quaint life people used to have. On one side, it sounds horrible, just like making these frilly little dresses or whatever all day. But on the other side, it's like, well, that's all you got to do anyway. I don't know. Like, are the jobs people have now any better than just making a dress alone in your own house? Like I feel like you're your own boss if you're making dresses for the farm people,
Hat making is an art with these women of Cabo Rojo. The Extension Service fosters these almost forgotten home industries to add to the family income.
This is making me want to have one of these hats, though.
From these imported rags will be woven beautiful rugs. Farm women and girls are trained to do this kind of...
See, again, I don't know if this is like, to them, a positive or like a negative, right? Like, in our current perception of this, you could say like this is the beginning of a sweatshop, but all of these girls look like so happy and thrilled to be like given a task that is like really easy and nice that you get to hang out with each other for, Like, I get why women back in these days would have enjoyed like sewing together. Like, if they're all going to be doing it alone anyway in their own houses, like you might as well get together and do it. Obviously, like the potential for like being overworked and like forced into a sweatshop labor conditions is there, but it obviously hasn't happened yet by this point. So I wonder if it ever got bad or if it just disappeared. I don't know. These ladies look happy though. They look like they're having the time of their life. Honestly, I honestly get that too, right? If your whole life is either between working super hard in the burning hot sun on a farm, like in a field, or just sitting inside knitting all day, like, I totally get why people would have knitted back in the day.
Work, thus creating another home industry.
Yeah, like, look how happy these girls are. They are totally like, thank God I don't have to be in the fields anymore. Yeah, they're all so smiley. Like, you can just tell they're happy to be here.
About 7,500 farm boys.
Hang on, that was a weird... I know I keep jumping back and forth between these topics, but that was a weird transition that we just got. It was like the letter H. What was the point of that transition? Like, it's just like that's so much more work that whoever did that had to have done. That you couldn't have done that for no reason, you know? Like, you had to have put the extra energy in to make an H-shaped transition. But why? You know, like that's like why did you transition like that for that one shot?
Join the 4-H club movement in Puerto Rico. Listen to their 4-H.
Dang, look at this woman. What's this patch on her arm mean, you think? I'm curious about that patch. That's another thing that like people had their own little things going on. But it's like, what is this girl's patch? Like, I don't know, but she earned it somehow, you know? She must have been proud of it too. It's like, what's the 4-leaf clover patch that she earned? Like, what? I don't know. What's the story behind it? I just want to know. I don't think we'll ever know. Does somebody in the comments know the meaning behind that patch? I'll pin it. I'll like it. I'll comment on it. If somebody can give me an actual answer for what that patch on this girl means, I will be forever grateful.
Their 4-H pledge.
That's so funny because this whole time I wasn't even thinking these people were speaking Spanish. They look so American that in my head they were all like speaking English this whole time. But I guess it makes sense that they all speak Spanish. I don't want to say that, but they look so like American. I don't know. Dang, I feel like if I understood what they were saying, them putting these girls probably saying some form of Pledge of Allegiance to something over the footage of this parade with American flags. I bet that's like, if I understood what they were actually saying, this would be like a really pointed edit that they have going on right now. Us listening to these girls while watching these people. I don't quite understand the meaning or the impact of these girls saying what they're saying over this footage, but it feels like there's a real big impact if you actually know what's going on. I just want to pause and see and look at these American flags real quick, because if this is 42, then these flags should have 48 stars on them, I think. I don't think Alaska or Hawaii, or maybe even like Arizona or anything, they might have fewer than 48 stars. It's just, you can tell that these aren't the modern American flags, which, you know, that's what you're going to see, obviously. They weren't going to wave 50-starred flags in Puerto Rico in 1940, but it's always interesting. You just forget that American flags were changing all the time back in the day.
By participating in social and civic activities, the rural youth trains for better citizenship.
The rural youth trains for better citizenship. So how do I dissect this? So obviously these people were being like, I don't want to say brainwashed, or like they were being like culturally colonized. Like obviously they thought the Americanization was like helping their island, which it might have been to a degree, I don't know, but that statement to me just sounded like the more American we can make these like farm people, the better, you know, like we improve the chances of their society by teaching them our social code and our like norms and our civics, you know, that's what they wanted. So you can just see them saying like, we're colonizing their minds by doing that. I just think that was a very poignant statement that he just made before transitioning.
Dedicated to the betterment of farm life, their motto is, learn by doing, and they live up to it. Here a group of boys at the Vega Baja demonstration farm learn how to graft citrus trees.
I've always wanted to graft things onto trees too. It's just, this is another technique that feels like it's modern. To understand that you can cut off a branch and then sew it or graft it onto another tree, that feels like, something that science has only come up with like in the past 50 years. But just seeing it here, like grafting has been a standard agricultural practice probably for like thousands of years. You never think about that. You never think that like people in Puerto Rico in 1940 were being taught how to graft things. And what's so funny is that's exactly how we graft to this day, is you literally just cut it, slide it in, and then tape it up. There's not anything more complicated. And they weren't doing anything less complicated back then either. That's just funny. The grafting technique has not changed at all within the past 80 years.
4-H girls are trained in the art of homemaking. Following the instructions of the home agent, they can.
Yeah, of course you get like the gendered education lessons. Like here, let's teach the boys how to farm and the girls how to can vegetables or whatever. That's not that surprising. And honestly, I don't even think that's like a holdover of like American culture at this point. Like I feel like every society around the world at this time was teaching the same things. I could be wrong. Maybe the Puerto Rican farm girls had a lot more freedom before America, but it seems like they're just trying to teach them the American home skills. Like if these girls weren't being Americanized, they would have just been taught like the Puerto Rican home skills. But now that they're being Americanized, they're just being taught the American home skills. I don't think there was any world where these girls weren't taught how to bake cakes and whatnot.
Products of their home gardens.
Oh wait, hang on. Club 4-H. That's what these clovers mean. Club 4-H. What does it say? I can't read that, man. What do the 4-H's mean? I feel like I'm starting to recognize that from somewhere too. Is that still a thing? Club 4-H. What does that mean?
Girls of the Villa Maquina 4-H Club of Sabana Grande.
4-H Club, you just said it.
Take earnestly to their sewing project.
Dang, are these singers? Oh my god, these are some nice sewing machines. Don't ask me why I know that, but like, it's actually crazy that they have singers.
Humble, thatched, typical home of many of the less than 1 acre farmers.
Yeah, see, this is what I was saying. This is the sort of house that I was expecting. No offense, but the houses previously all looked like new American suburban house builds. Whereas this, the thatched house and walls, like this is what I expected the Puerto Rican farmers' houses to look like. No offense, but...
thatched, typical home of many of the less than 1 acre farmers, where the goat is the family cow.
What's also so wild is that these people were dressing like this while living in that sort of house. I think that's even more bizarre. Like you think of somebody who wears like a collared button-down shirt and pants and a tie is like in a normal house with a concrete foundation. That's what it is. Like somebody who wears this clothes lives in a house with a concrete foundation. And it's just so wild to see people who were trying to be part of that socioeconomic bracket of people who wear collared shirts, but we're still living in like thatched huts at the same time. That's just so bizarre that like you could dress so nicely and have a house that is handmade.
This 4-H Club boy, Rene Jimenez, shows us how to milk his goat his own way. Here we meet Umberto with his swan project. He is in 4th year high school, yet he takes on...
This kid is in 4th year high school, dang. So he's like a senior and he already has like his own farm, his own pigs going. See, that's what we need in high school. Every high schooler needs to have like a farm to maintain.
On the added duties of caring for his animals.
And again, their hair even. Like, this guy looks so good. He's so clean. His shirt is white, and he's on a farm with pigs. Like, this guy looks like he's on his way to Wall Street, not pig farming in, boondocks, Puerto Rico.
These girls of Calle make beautiful artificial flowers from native grasses. This is profitable work, but the 4-H clubs have brought something more to rural Puerto Rico. They have brought recreation to the farms. Activities that tend to make farm boys and girls healthier and happier.
I shouldn't talk about people like this, but I'm so curious how old these girls are. Because, they kind of look like they're, 25, but I don't know, to be dressed up like this. I feel like people back in the day just looked older. Like these girls are probably like 17 or 18, maybe 16, but they look like they're like 30-year-old women just because of the way they are dressed and presented, I guess. And also, is this really a profitable endeavor? They're making fake flowers with grass. Just like, who are they selling that to? What's the market there? I don't know though, maybe there is a big market for it. I just can't imagine a fake grass flower market doing anything, to be honest. Especially in Puerto Rico. Like, who cares about these? I don't know.
These girls of Luquillo make attractive and saleable dolls from seashells.
Those actually are pretty cool. I hope they show us a close-up. See, that's what's so pleasant about like this time, I think, to me, is that like anything that you wanted to do that was just like interesting, like you could do. Like these girls are paying for their like stay in their houses by just making dolls out of seashells. Like I feel like people don't appreciate like that simplicity of life anymore, where all you have to do is collect shells on the beach and make like a doll. Like back before there were factories churning out 1,000 dolls a second in China, like girls in Puerto Rico used to have to collect shells to make dolls. That's a lost job now. I bet there's not even a single person in Puerto Rico who knows how to make these dolls anymore. Or maybe there is. That'd be cool if there was. That's what makes stuff like this so appealing. It's like back in the day, you could just do something that simple and like pleasant and just earn a living from it. Like, I dare any of you to try to go to the beach to collect shells to make a shell doll with to sell. First off, how long does that take? How many shells? Back then, you make a doll out of shells and it'll sell for like $50 to $100. I don't know what the inflation adjusted price would be, but like that amount of money, like you would. But today, dolls are like $5 because they're all made out of plastic. So the value of a doll has gone down because they're so replicatable in factories. Back in the day, you could support yourself on making dolls because dolls were so much rarer to find because there weren't factories churning them out. So many nice, pleasant jobs have just been completely done away with because of factories. And I know that's like progress and everything, but it's like you can't blame people for wanting to go back to the world before there were factories. Back when people would value your work for making a doll, like nobody values that work anymore. It seems so appealing to live in Puerto Rico in 1940. Again, I don't think that's the actual case, but this is making it seem so.
Girls also have field projects. This senorita, a Vega Baca, takes us into her well-kept papaya grove.
See, but it is interesting because it appears like the women do have like a very large role in these agricultural societies or whatever, this agricultural revolution that's taking place within Puerto Rico. Obviously, they were teaching those girls how to can vegetables or whatever and the boys to graft or whatever, but it still feels like, I don't know, there's an equal sharing of responsibilities to keep like their families sustained and running. Even though they're learning different things, it feels like they're all learning skills that help each other, like even learning how to make that clothes. It's interesting that so much effort was put into both boys and girls' education. I guess that's democracy at work in rural Puerto Rico.
Thus, under the 4-H banner, an alert and healthy generation of rural youth is growing up to assume the grave responsibilities of...
This game they're playing? Hang on, though. I'm trying to figure out what the rules of this game are. So these girls are holding hands, and the little girls are moving between them to get in between their arms. Is this a game? That's what I love about this sort of stuff. Like, is this a game that people still know how to play in Puerto Rico? Because I have never seen this game. I don't know how it's played, but I would love to know that like this is still a playground game for Puerto Rican people.
The grave responsibilities of citizenship. Boys and girls well fitted both physically and spiritually to take their places.
Dang, see, this is what I'm talking about with Americanization though. They're literally playing basketball. Like I don't even know how old basketball was at this point. Like I feel like basketball only came around in the 40s. Like the fact that they're already playing it. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't know everything about basketball, but they're definitely being Americanized, being brought into American farming techniques and American sports. Ironically, they're not showing them play baseball, but That's funny. That is funny that they're playing basketball instead of baseball. Also, what are they dribbling on? This doesn't even look like a good floor, like a concrete ground to be playing basketball on. This is a really nice song, though. It's like, I don't know, I feel like this, I said it earlier, but I feel like this sort of music has also been lost, and I'm glad to be able to at least preserve the music that was included in these programs.
Through this spirit of helpful service on the one hand, and a determination to build for a more bountiful future on the other, better farmers are improving farming. Better housewives are improving living.
I like that. Hang on. That's a funny way to put it. Better farmers are improving farming.
Better housewives are improving living.
Better housewives are improving living. So that's funny how they tie like your quality of life to the quality of your housewife. I don't know. That is a very gendered thing, but it's funny how they didn't say men make better farms, women make better houses or whatever. Like there's two groups. There's farmers and then there's housewives.
Better children are improving life itself.
Better children are improving life itself. Wow. That's just so funny because, like, what do you mean better children, you know? Like, the children are just better.
And when the hours of toil draw to a close and the sun goes down beyond the uncertainty...
This is what I was saying earlier with mechanization, though. Like, this farming technique that they're doing has totally been forgotten, right? Like, I guess they're plowing, that's not been forgotten, but like this guy is just digging a hole and then the guy behind him is burying what looks like garlic. It's just, again, today that would just be a machine that drives over. Even these farming techniques just have been lost to us, like how people used to farm and how they used to make it more efficient. I just feel like a lot of that's been lost. So it's always good to see farming techniques preserved in films like this.
Beyond the encircling seas, stout hearts glow with hope and boast of the will to work for a fuller...
See, what's sad is this was probably like a fantastic shot when they first got it, right? Back in the day. Like, you have these silhouetted farmers working. Like, this looks like a shot from Raiders of the Lost Ark, actually. But, of course, without color and without, good contrast, it kind of just gets washed out. But I bet this was, like, such a good shot. And that's probably why they're choosing to show it, like, as one of the last shots. Because they wanted to end on it. It's funny that all that, like, I don't know, all that beauty kind of faded away from this shot. But I bet this shot was really good at one point.
Life in rural Puerto Rico.
All right, that's the end. That is the democracy at work in rural Puerto Rico. What's funny is that Puerto Rico is still in the same exact political arrangement as it was back when this was made. So all that democracy at work in rural Puerto Rico didn't really result in any more democracy coming to Puerto Rico. But I did think that was interesting. I think it's interesting to see the lens through which Americans viewed Puerto Rico at this time, right? This was made by the United States Department of Agriculture. So what you just got to see is how the United States Department of Agriculture viewed Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rican people and the purpose of Puerto Rico. Like, all that was about farming for a reason. I think this reveals just like what the Americans actually wanted out of Puerto Rico. I think it reveals the deal, I guess, the deal that Americans wanted to make to Puerto Ricans. The Americans wanted Puerto Rico to become part of America, and their half of the deal was to modernize, to teach these people, to give them, cash crops and whatever, to have them make money. And the other side would be that all those crops would be American crops and would go to American markets and whatnot. It's strange because this was so much closer to the actual event of Puerto Rico becoming American territory that it seems like they were going in the direction of statehood from the very beginning. It seemed like this really made it seem like we were colonizing Puerto Rico for it to become an American state. That's what it looks like, at least. I don't know why the United States Department of Agriculture would make a program on Puerto Rico if there wasn't some intention to have closer, cooperation between the two. So that is very interesting. I think we learned a lot about how Americans and the American government viewed Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rican people during this time. And it's interesting to think of how that understanding and how that relationship has grown and changed and maybe not changed at all in the time since this was made. So very interesting, a lot to think about, especially if you're Puerto Rican. Let me know what those 4 H's mean. I feel like I've seen that before. Yeah, that's it. That's the rest of it. So I guess all we have to do now is cut to black.